Last summer, my friend Jamie and I were driving back home from a week-long trip to Sea Isle, New Jersey. That place is one of our favorite beach spots, and we always try to go at least once a year. The trip itself was amazing, relaxing, fun, just what we needed. But the ride back, that's when everything went south. We live in the suburbs of Pennsylvania, and that means when you're coming back from New Jersey, you usually have to cut through Philadelphia. I hate that part of the drive. The traffic is insane, and some of the neighborhoods you end up going through aren't exactly the safest. Anyway, it was around 8 p.m. The sun was just about to set, and Jamie was the one driving. I was in the passenger seat, half asleep. I'd been nodding off since we left the shore. At some point, I felt the car slow down, and the rough bumps of uneven city pavement started to wake me up. We were deep in the city at that point, and GPS had rerouted us off the main highway because of traffic. We were now cutting through side streets and unfamiliar neighborhoods, and not the good kind. I remember blinking awake and realizing we were sitting at a red light on some narrow one-way street. The buildings were boarded up, graffiti was everywhere, and just looking around, I could feel something was wrong. Instinctively, I checked to make sure my door was locked. Jamie looked tense too. I started to ask Jamie how much longer we had till we got home, when there was this loud bang on my window. I jumped so hard I nearly hit the roof of the car. Standing there was this man, probably homeless, maybe on something, I don't know. He looked rough. His clothes were stained and torn. His face was sunken in, and the scar on the side of his face stretched from his temples down past his jaw. It did not even look healed. He smiled at me, and he had no teeth. And even with the window closed, the smell coming off of him hit me. He started mumbling, "Water, money. I need water and money." I was honestly shell-shocked. It wasn't even about feeling bad. I was scared. I shook my head and said, "Sorry," trying not to make eye contact with him. He looked at me and just said, "No, I'm the one who's sorry." That's when Jamie screamed. I turned, and on her side of the car, there was another man. He had on a black ski mask and was dressed head to toe in dark clothes. He was tapping on the window with something under his shirt that looked like a gun, and I honestly believe it was. He started yelling for us to hand over our phones, our wallets, jewelry, anything valuable. And then he said if we didn't, he'd shoot Jamie in the head and let me live with the guilt. And we were stuck. Traffic wasn't moving, and there were cars behind us, but they were just honking, thinking we were the ones holding things up. Nobody helped us. Nobody even rolled down their windows. We gave him everything, our phones, Jamie's wallet, my necklace, even the sunglasses off of my head. He grabbed everything through the barely cracked window, and then just ran, straight into an alley like it was rehearsed. I looked back at the guy on my side, the homeless-looking one, and he was still there, smiling, like the whole thing was some joke to him. Then he walked off too, calmly, like nothing happened. Jamie was shaking so bad I didn't even think she could keep her foot on the gas. As soon as we could move, we got out of there and pulled into the first gas station we could find. She was crying, hyperventilating. We had to use the clerk's phone to call the cops. When the police finally showed up, they basically shrugged, told us it happens all the time in that area, and we were lucky we weren't hurt. There was no investigation, no real effort to look for them. Just took our statement, then they left. I ended up driving the rest of the way home, while Jamie sat there silent, just staring out the window. We haven't talked about it much since. I know it shook her. It shook me too. If there's anything I learned, it's this. Just because you're in a car doesn't mean you're safe, especially when you're stuck in traffic and can't go anywhere. We were literally sitting ducks. Now, if I can help it, I avoid driving through big cities altogether, especially Philly. I know not everyone there is bad, but that night changed how I look at being out in public forever. Sometimes it's not about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's about not being able to leave when things go wrong. Back during the peak of COVID, I lost my job, like a lot of other people did. Money was tight real fast, and I did not have many options. I was living alone in a small, crappy apartment outside of Philly. And it wasn't the safest area, and the building had a roach problem, but it was what I could afford. I started doing DoorDash to scrape by. At first I thought it'd be temporary, but weeks turned into months, and I ended up doing it almost full time. I'd take any order I could get, didn't matter when or where. I was hustling 12, sometimes 14 hours a day, just to keep up with the rent and bills. It wore me down, but I did not have the luxury of being picky. One night I got an order around 11:30 p.m. I remember it clearly because I was considering logging off, but when I saw the payout, I accepted it. It wasn't much, but I needed every cent. The delivery was to a part of town I hated going to. Run down, high crime rate, zero cell signal in some spots, and not once had I ever gotten tipped in that area. But it was only 10 minutes away, and a simple McDonald's order of 3 McChickens, a large fry, and a sweet tea. I picked up the food and started driving to the address. The closer I got, the more I regretted it. I've seen some bad houses doing this job, but this one stood out. It looked completely abandoned. The roof had collapsed on one side. The yard was overgrown with waist-high weeds, and all the windows were boarded up with rotting plywood. No lights on, no car in the driveway. I actually had to lift the broken mailbox off the ground to check if the address matched. I figured I'd just drop the food at the door, snap the photo for proof, and get out. I walked up, set the bag down on the top step, took the pick, and started back toward my car. No big deal. I got in and started backing out of the gravel driveway when my phone buzzed. It was the customer messaging me through the DoorDash app. "You did not even knock, and my order is missing an item. Come back now." What threw me off was how fast they messaged. I hadn't even cleared the driveway yet. Also, I hadn't seen anyone come to the door, and when I glanced in my rearview mirror, the food was already gone. I looked down at the app and double-checked the order. Nothing was missing. I responded that the order was correct and sent him the photo I took. They replied almost immediately, "This isn't about the food. Come back to the door now. I'm waiting." I looked back up at the house and noticed something that made my chest tighten. The front door was now wide open. When I dropped the food off, it was definitely shut. I was maybe 40 feet away. There was no way I missed someone opening that door, unless they did it the second I looked away. Right then, I started to hear footsteps to the left of my car, on the gravel. Slow, steady, crutches, like someone walking along the tree line just beyond the driveway. I couldn't see anyone, but I could hear them. I turned off the music and leaned slightly toward the driver's side window, trying to make anything out. Nothing. Just blackness and the sound of someone pacing slowly. I turned to check the house again, and now I saw faint movement at the doorway. It wasn't clear, but someone was standing just inside, maybe a step back from the threshold. No lights on, just a dark figure in a darker frame. That's when I put the car in drive and got the hell out. I don't think I've ever had my heart pounding that hard. I drove with the windows down to try and calm myself down, but I felt weird, like my body knew something was off before my brain could catch up. I did a few more deliveries in safer areas to shake the feeling, but I couldn't stop thinking about the message. The way they said, "I'm waiting." The speed of it. The way the door opened with no one in sight. And those footsteps. I finally called it a night around 1:30 a.m. and drove back to my complex. As I pulled into the lot, I got one last message from that same customer. "Good idea leaving when you did." That was it. No follow-up, no request for a refund, just that. I reported the account to DoorDash the next morning, gave them the messages, screenshots, everything. Never heard back. I don't even know if they looked into it. I don't care if the payout is double now. I'll never deliver to that side of town again. Some orders are just not worth the money. And that night, I don't think it was about the food at all. I work for a trash company. I dropped out of college after a year because I realized it wasn't for me. It felt like a scam, and the debt wasn't worth it. I wasn't about to go tens of thousands into the hole for a piece of paper that might not even help me. So I left and got a job working sanitation for one of the bigger companies in my county. By all means, it's not glamorous, but it pays decent, and it's honest work. I started out riding along with an older guy named Charles. He'd been with the company for 10 years and knew the job inside and out. I liked him right away. No BS type of guy. About 2 weeks into the job, we had a route that took us through a pretty rough part of town. Everyone in that area seemed down bad. Most were clearly on government assistance, houses falling apart, old furniture left out front for months. That kind of place. It was depressing, honestly. But one house stood out to me right away. It was a red brick home. Small, just one story, but it looked like it had been taken care of in decades. Half the shutters were missing, roof was warped, and there was an overgrown bush practically swallowing the mailbox. It looked like it could fall over in a strong wind. I did not think much of it until I dumped the trash can into the truck. When I did, a bunch of dead animal carcasses tumbled out, bloody, half-rotted. The smell was unbelievable. I remember stepping back and gagging. From what I could see in the mess, there was a raccoon, maybe a couple of rabbits, and something that might have been a groundhog. All small, wild animals, and all clearly dead for a bit. I turned to Charles and asked if he'd ever seen anything like that. He shrugged and said, "Trash is trash. Don't ever think it." I tried to brush it off, but I thought about it the whole day. Why were there dead animals being thrown out in bulk like that? Next week, same house, same story, more dead animals. Different kinds this time. Looked like squirrels and maybe a possum. Same bloody mess, same ungodly smell. I asked Charles again, and he just told me some people are freaks, and to keep it moving. I mean, it's not like we have time to stop and investigate. We're on a tight route and just have to keep dumping and going. But it sat wrong with me. By the third week, I was already looking for the trash bin before we even got to the house. Sure enough, it was there by the curb. And yep, it was filled again. This time with what looked like skinned animals. There was no fur, just flesh and bone, blood leaking through the bag. I did not even need to open it. The smell told me everything. That night I got curious and decided to look up the address. Zillow said it was bought 3 years ago as a foreclosure, but no name came up for the current owner. No photos, no sale history beyond that. Weird, but I figured maybe someone just paid cash and never updated anything. Then, the next week, I noticed something different. That house, it wasn't on our route anymore. I asked Charles about it, and he said it had been pulled off by the office. No explanation given. I figured maybe they moved or stopped paying their bill, but when we drove by it, I saw yellow police tape wrapped around the whole property. I asked Charles again, and this time he told me what he heard. Apparently, the guy who lived there had been arrested. Rumor was it had something to do with kidnapping and certain files found on his computer. That's the way Charles worded it. He didn't go into detail, but his tone told me all I needed to know. I did not sleep great that night. All I kept thinking about was those dead animals, every week, piled into that trash bin. What the hell was he doing? Was he torturing them? Hunting them for some sick hobby? Practicing on animals before moving on to people? I don't know, and I probably never will. I tried to look up news articles, but there was barely anything online. Just a small piece about a man being arrested at that house in connection to an ongoing investigation. No name, no mugshot, no real details. The thing that gets me the most is how normal it all seemed on the outside. A broken down house on a street full of broken down houses. No one really suspects anything, I guess. No one called it in. Week after week, I was emptying bags full of evidence, and I didn't even realize it. Now, every time I dump a can and hear something thud at the bottom, I feel my stomach drop. You never really think about how much you can tell about a person from their trash until you start doing this job. Some of the worst people hide in plain sight, and the only clue you might ever get is in what they throw away.